I'm running round the house with my wee hatchet on me. Wee hatchet on me. Wee hatchet on me. I'm running round the house.
Choo choo,
Umaru, you sure you want to do that right now?
Here comes a new challenger!
Funny you should say that there, Andy. I remember getting dropped one time and joining the rob by an accident.
Mark, I'm sorry. I don't have the brains.
How are we getting on, folks? Thank you very much for coming on. Cheapers, all the cool people here so early. Welcome on Steam Stream. Thank you very much for the blitz. McKinn's, Boichi, what has happened? Mabriel, thank you so much for coming on. Ready Crash, what is the story? We've done a few wee shoutouts. The audacity of this itch. Oh, Luna Boo 9000. I wonder who the fuck that is. Ah, Pinche. Yes, indeed, Ihore. So, welcome in, folks. The battle of the bots. Well, mine will win because my stream, and those are the fucking rules. Living the dream, emptying a dishwasher, being an adult. Ready? I wish I had a dishwasher. You're looking at my house's dishwasher. And that's me. Oh, thank you very much for signing the letter. But welcome. How are we getting? I know you probably all follow each other anyway, but my buddy Redicratch, if you're not following him, he is a streamer bot aficionado. He has the smoothest looking stream in the world. And if you're not following my buddy May, she is cozy with a sprinkle of chaos, and you're guaranteed a good time if you give her a follow and go check out her stream. But we are playing more Pragmata tonight. Now, I have been informed by the spoiler man himself, Flim Flam Bamalam, who isn't going to be here tonight, that I don't have very much long left, and it's very, very short, the amount of time I have left on it. So I'm going to do with that as I will. There'll be a lot of cool beans. Oh, you're too kind. No, thank you very much for coming. The shoutouts aren't a problem as well. I shout out all the cool folks, except Hook. He does his own shoutouts because he's a fucking troglodyte. He's not even here. He's sending me pictures. He's organising his desk and he's sending me pictures about it, and I'm fucking jealous. And I don't appreciate it. I don't appreciate it. But I was in the office today and had a busy old day. The day flew. The day flew. Last office day tomorrow as well. Speaking of which, very nice. I like it. What is? What are we talking about? What's very nice? The beans? The desk? The desk? What desk? What desk? My desk? Hook's desk? Fuck Hook. Fuck Hook. His desk. It's probably like only up to it's probably up the back of the desk equally. I know. I do have a wee camera thing that happens. Look at me talking my technical thing. Where I press that, it goes up and looks at the games. But look at the shiny head as well. It's like an egg. It's like an egg hatching. Look. Caw! 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 It's an egg. I don't know why the bird's making a caw noise if it's in the egg. It doesn't make any fucking sense. What weapon is that? That is the gunblade from Final Fantasy XIV. I also have an axe somewhere. Yeah. Also have this bad boy as well. From God of War. No, it's completely foam. It's not going to hurt anybody. Except probably me. I'd hurt myself with it. Nerd. What a nerd. Fucking nerds. Well, I am a nerd. You know what? Fucking deal with it. All my fucking anime tattoos and everything on me. And my anime t-shirt on. I'm a fucking nerd. But, what was my train of thought? I don't remember. Fuck. I was on work. And a song keeps coming on the radio. And I keep laughing away at it. So, the lyrics of the song, for years I've been singing them wrong. I keep singing, my man, he's got no money, but he's got a Trumbalise.
Because
Waffles, what's happening? I need more bald men on my screen. I'm jealous. I'm only 97% foam. Yeah, but the rest he's fucking rock hard, ready. And I've been singing that for years. And it came on the radio the other day, and I was all, my man, he's got no money. He's got his Trumbalise. And I was corrected at work. Apparently the lyrics, and I had to look them up, are he's got his strong beliefs. My man has got no money. He's got his strong beliefs. I thought the Trumbalise was some sort of like instrument. I thought like he maybe didn't have any money, so he went out busking with his Trumbalise, and that's how he was making money. But it turns out, no, it's not. It's strong beliefs, and now I feel silly. I don't even think a Trumbalise is even a fucking bit of audio equipment, but it sounds like something. It sounds like something. Maybe it's like a woodwind instrument that it has like buttons, and you could imagine someone. Oh, I play the Trumbalise. You'd be like, oh fuck, Trumbalise player, fair play. Nah, it's Trumbalise. Yeah, Trumbalise. Brady, I like the fact that you agree with me on that, and we should stick with it. Yes. Kind of like lust and butts. I lust over many butts, and I shall not be shamed about it. There should be no lust and butt shaming here. And we shall add Trumbalise to the record too. That's what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like that. You're deaf. I spoken to proper good England, and it makes complete sense in my head before it touches my mouth. That didn't sound right. That sounded inappropriate. We'll scrap that. We'll delete it from the VOD. We've never said that. But yeah, it looks to be You've got a lust of games. I do have a lust of games. They're very, very pretty games with all the Final Fantasies on them, and that's the lust. Thank you for the butts. To be fair, that was your fault because you heard that wrong, and you have taken that over on your stream. That's not my fault. That's on you. Really, I'm just seeing it now. Fuck Hook. Yeah, fuck Hook. Oh, man, thank you very much for the bits. Thank you for the butts. Appreciate it. Thank you. But yeah, Pragmata took a bit of a weird turn last week. So it looked as if Diane got infected with some sort of thing, and turns out 8th is the bad guy after all. And we've cured Diane, but now it seems like Hugh is infected with something, which de nada. Pinche me. Fucking coming in here. Chatting all that jive. Slagging off my Trombolese. I may not have money, but I have Trombolese. But yeah, gonna get stuck on a bit more Pragmata. Now, if we finish it early, don't know what I'm gonna do. I could just see how everybody's feeling and throw in another wee game. Depends how long we've left. I'm not very good at games, so it could take me fucking weeks. Badly I work. Okay, but no. I don't know what it means, so I'm completely innocent in what I'm saying. So, you know, it's technically not my fault. It's a language I don't speak. Oh my god, Jump King. I don't have Jump King. And I've seen Jump King. It's fucking horrendous. I remember Latency was playing it, and that man had a full head of hair at the start, and then there was big patches by the end of it. I don't like starting my next game on same stream. That's one thing. Now that's my jam. I don't like starting my next game on the same stream. But one thing, now that's my jam. Really, that was worse English than what I've been speaking, and that was fucking horrendous. We need some sort of butt clenching game here. No, nothing scary, nothing like fucking the boba tea fucking bullshit. A one-time game. Right, okay, it makes more sense now. Ready? You gotta explain yourself there. You should be ashamed. Yeah. I have multiple games. Yeah, you do have multiple games in the vault, but that's where the cozy with the sprinkle of the chaos comes in. And that's why everyone should go over and annoy you with your redeems, just to wind you up whenever you're streaming. I'm deep in the dishwasher, obvious joke. But I said I was the dishwasher earlier already, so that makes us kind of weird. That makes it a bit inappropriate. Don't know what's happening here. Theo has been fucking hilarious tonight. It is really torrential heavy rain.
Mr. Madison, what you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
In your appropriate fucking
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Okay, a simple wrong would have done just fine, but...
You know, I got this really good... You know Che Guevara, the Cuban guy? I got really good Che Guevara lapel for my shirt. And I want to express that to you, mate. Because it's a pin. It's a pin. Che me. In Che me. I don't see the clue redeemed. It comes on randomly because Flamash kept doing it. They annoy me. It will be there at some point. You know what? I might just manually switch it on because fuck knows. It goes on at a random period of time. Most of the safeguarding that we have in our streams, and everyone will attest to this, is because of fucking Flamash and the fact that he's a degenerate who just loves to wind people up. Where is it? No, it should be active. Okay, we'll blame it on Flum. I'll unactivate it and then reactivate it. It should show up. Should be there at the top now. Yeah, it's there in green. It can be redeemed.
Tell me what you want.
Why does that still cover my face?
Oh, excuse me? No. What do you say? Bitch. No.
Thank you. I work really hard.
Call me that.
That is true.
What do you say?
Please.
I did.
Please. Bitch, please.
I did catch your VOD from last night as well and see the fucking new overlays and the new PNG tuber. Fucking really cool. Really well done. Did you hear that, Cleo? Did you hear the carry on with the fucking treat? Did you? Are you looking for a treat? Mike! Thank you very much for the Prime sub. Welcome on. Thank you, buddy. For fuck's sake, Luke. I haven't done it for fuck's sake. I've been good. You're redoing everything, and you work really hard, and we can see that. Right, Cleo, you're getting a treat here. So, it's been torrential raining, and she wanted to go toilet, and I took her to the back door and opened it, and the rain was battering off the ground, and she just went... That's something to make up from. No, I don't tell bad jokes anymore. I don't do that. That's not my thing. Here you go, Pops. I don't tell bad jokes. There she goes with a nom in the treat. Thank you for popping your head out of the way of the camera, which I fucking sat for like 30 minutes trying to fix. Look, there he is. Look who finally showed up. Mr. Desk himself. What's happening? We cannot see the dog. We cannot see the dog. But Mike, thank you very much for coming on. Anyone's not following my buddy Mike as well. He speedruns Final Fantasy VIII. And what is the other game you're playing at the moment? Because you're playing quite a few JRPGs as well. And I can't remember which one. I remember it was Breath of Fire and everything was recently. Oh, Suikoden. It was Suikoden. See, I remember Suikoden too. I remember things. I've got brains. And if you have to, I suppose you could probably follow Hook as well. He's like me, but has hair and is shorter. And plays Halo because he fucking loves Halo and Linkin Park, even though it's shit. As well, just sitting down now, all tidy. That picture did look well. It did look a good desk. A good cable managed desk. I was going to actually use my sit-stand desk tonight. Fucking hell. Thanks for the butts. I was going to use my sit-stand desk tonight and I started raising it and all my cables started really tightening around my GPU and I was like, oh shit, I cabled managed the fuck out of this and I'm going to end up breaking my PC.
7 minutes. 7
Bears,
minutes is all I can
Tomahawk,
spare
is
to
that
play
beautiful?
with
You
you.
looking in the mirror again, Tom, with that wonderful mustache. Howdy, handsome. And Aga, welcome on. A hype train. Thank you very much, Tomahawk, for the prime as well. You're far too fucking generous. You really don't need it. Mostly because of the fact that I haven't streamed at all really this month. I have been lackadaisical and shite. I was taking a bit of a break from the streaming and then I wasn't really well as well during the week and 9 months as well. Tomahawk, that's a baby. That's a baby. All the hunks here, it seems. You must be looking at multiple mirrors of yourself. That's why I did mine too. Wanted to stand today. But you're so tiny, it doesn't have to be a very tall desk for you to stand at it. Grand. Don't worry about it. What are we calling our baby? We're calling our baby Xbox. Box. That should be his name. I got a hunk of the main screen and chat. Do you have Hook's VOD up in chat? Glad to have you back. I'm glad to be back. Glad to be back. I enjoy the crack. Plus, I really want to finish Pragmata. It's a game that does. It's a very, very short, palate cleansing sort of filler game, and it's taken me fucking ages to do because I haven't streamed really in August. You're now in my debt. You're not allowed to leave again. Ready? Thank you very much for the sub. Everybody, no one has to spend any money here except for you, Gritty, because you're contractually obliged to do so. I don't know how to first here. Fuck it. Yeah, you do. There's a video on Zero Cash Tech on how to actually go through and remove a lot of maybe the founders who left Twitch and they don't stream it or don't call in anymore, so you can actually do that and reallocate. You can't pick who you're reallocating, but it'll bump people up then. It'll bump the cool people up. Yeah, fuck them losers. To be fair, it might have been Reddit that told me how to do that, so, I'm just teaching them to suck eggs now. Yeah, you can switch them out. You can't pick who they're going to, but it'll go to the next cool person. I got rid of loads of people. So did I. I got rid of it, and it wasn't even anything malicious. It was just people who maybe don't show up to Twitch anymore, and I was just like, if they come back, happy days, but they come bye-bye. So I'm going to shoot over the game now because I'm chatting here too long. I'm feeling like I'm Hook. I'm feeling like Hook. I feel very, very hookish, and I'll start growing hair in a wee minute. That's how you got one. Yes, victory. I defeated whoever it was in front of me. I killed him. Didn't actually kill him. Akira, what's happening? Welcome on. Hook, would you mind doing a wee shout out for both Akira and Enaiga as well, two fellow streamer folk, and High Scores, High Stakes? I'm giving you a list of work to do. So, where we left off is... she is the best NPC. She's so fucking cool. I don't know why I keep saying that hang tight cooldown for 8 months. I'm going to have to figure out what that is because it's annoying me a little bit. Apologies, your auto is usually on the ball. It is. Will we play a game? We'll play a game where Shakira. But she's going to hide and we have to go find her. But she's anybody, so it's going to be difficult. She's not up here. Oh, there's a fucking timer. I didn't realize there was a timer. I can hear. Where is she? But we're going to run. We'll run and find the child. not behind there. She's not over here. She's here somewhere. She's fucking here somewhere. Where are you? I might not actually find this child. It sounds like she's here. Where is she? Dan, where are you? Ah, there she is. Fuck. Don't jump. Got her. Got her. Thank you, Hugh. Thank you, Hugh, for doing the shoutouts for me, buddy. Oh, there we go. Docs, yeah, because you don't tell people your name. The same way I don't have it on my thing as well. She nearly did as well, and I kept running past her. What's this update? What am I updating? Have a gander.
Sorry, we're going streaking
Through
the
oh, I can get a
quad
costume.
and into the gymnasium. Come on, everybody!
Triple bingo! Congratulations!
Yay, me. And I got 7 stream streak as well. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, folks, if I'm missing anything as well. I am an old man and I'm a bit silly. I thought Hook's first name was the. It's the and then underscore. His legal name has an underscore in it. I do have quite the eye organ. I have 2 of them. I did have a couple of eye jokes as well. The first one was corny, the second was cornea. In the day, I know. So we actually get a new outfit for her. Let's go put on our new drip. And that's what it's all about. It's all about the drip. It's all about the drip and the toys. So exo layer, very Dead Spacey looking, isn't it? I like it. And then lunar aqua, yeah, new suit.
Look at you go. I dig it.
Okay, here's my chance.
See, she can't catch that because her name is Diane. She could catch it if her name was Annette.
I can't catch anything.
Let's move out to the central port and take care of it.
Hey, horrific, horrific. We'd love to see it. We'd love to see it. At Central Port, let's go. See, these are jokes. The jokes are why we come here. No, the jokes are why people don't come here. There's people that come into the stream and they hear the joke and they're all, no, I shall never be back to this place. This is a horrible place. This is where sadness happens.
I want to stop her, but I can't believe she's acting this way. We're both Pragmata, so there's got to be a way to get
Leo
along.
needs a pack of direction. She keeps battering that door open.
Pragmata or not, doesn't mean she'll listen to what you've got to say.
I just don't want to hurt her.
Well, there are people we don't want. Well, yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. We want. See, the problem is, I'm like some sort of. Do you ever watch What We Do in the Shadows, the TV series, and there's Colin, the energy vampire? That's me. I tell bad jokes, and when people groan and feel sadness because of them, I gain energy, and that's how it works. They're missing out on gold. I don't think so. I don't think so. My man, he's got no money. He's got a trombolese.
Somewhere in here, right?
Right. Along with A.
I have to try and remember my buttons as well because I fucking forget everything. Yeah, love that show. It's so well written. It's a really good show. Was there not a thing that she did? Yes, this. Honestly, if you haven't played Pragmata, it's such a good game. And I'm really looking to go back and do all the collectibles as well.
So this is where all the dead filament's going, huh?
We gotta stop her.
Damn right. Let's move.
The combat's so weird. I need to play this at some point. Love the demo. It's just the fact that you're aiming, but you have to hack at the same time, and it's just a really cool concept. I realized there I forgot how to say words, but it's okay. I don't need where I'm going. I don't need words. Take this. Wait for sale. Yeah. Are they all dead? Oh no, they're not. They're just standing over there. Are they dead? Nope. Nope, they're not. Now, this guy, he's my friend. I shall call him Derek. Derek, my friend. Oh no! He's the only one left. Derek, you must die. I normally wait for a sale for things, but then there's times as well where, like, I remember when First Light came out, I was like, oh, I need to play this straight away because fucking love First Light. And I know the Flim Flam Man was going on about it too, and I don't like to agree with him, but it's a very, very good bowling game. I hate it whenever I buy a game and then the next week it's on Game Pass or it's like free on Epic Games or something, which has happened too many times where I've seen a game and I'm like, yeah, I'm in the mood for that. And then it comes out in Game Pass and you're like, fuckers.
Doesn't matter. If it gets loose.
Although I did get Expedition 33 on Xbox because I'm looking to play through it again. Even though it is on Game Pass, I want to have the physical version of it because it's going to leave Game Pass at some point and I'm going to be like, meow, I can't play it. But yeah, the physical Final Fantasy games are my thing at the moment. I have to get 14 and 16. 14 is technically on its way, but they sent me the wrong games. They sent me Lost Planet and Bad Company. I think they sent me someone else's order. So I've sent that back, and now I'm waiting on my actual game to come. Friends say they get the game to play with them, and you pay full. Yeah, and then oh, it's annoying. It's annoying. And it happens far too often. And it's like the developers are sitting in your cupboard in your house, watching you and waiting for you to buy the game, and they're all, it's on Game Pass now, fuck you. Oh my god, I swear I heard 16. Yes, Final Fantasy 6, Final Fantasy 16. I don't know what you're laughing. I don't know what you're laughing at. It's the number after 15 and before 17. It makes sense. It makes sense. We're all wholesome. I am wholesome. I am all about the holes. That came out wrong. Oh. Sir, that was rude. That was also very rude. I don't like this. What's this boy doing? This way he's darting and diving about the place. He's being sneaky, and I don't like it. I'm the only one allowed to be sneaky here. Oh, me getting double shoutouts? My god. Look who's the popular one. Well. Hook doesn't even give me a shoutout in his own stream. Come on here, giving double shoutouts, you son of a bitch. Sir, if you could hurry up. No, I only had a couple bullets and you dodged them. Fucker. I can't hear Ihole without hearing it in May's voice. If you want to hear a funny story about that, when I was at the very start, when I was in May's stream, she would say Ihole. And I was all, what is this? What is this Ihole? So I typed into Google E-hole. And it came up, E-hole is the emergence hole from Gears of War. It is the hole that the Locusts first came out whenever they launched their attack. And I was all, okay, maybe she's just a big Gears of War fan. That makes sense. Gears of War's a good game. Honestly, it gets way better. It's an A for effort. It was. There is many times in your stream I have to bring up Google Translate though and just be all, what does this mean? Oh, it's Pinchele Orc. I'm getting grief. I'm getting slagged off. Again. You don't have any auto set up? I do have auto set up. Just taking your name out of it. Yeah, prick. I'm joking. Or am I? No, I don't, you nutter, not you. Oh, I know, because you have me to do your shoutouts, that's why. And he fell down. Touche. At least you tried, and that's the important part. It is, it is, it is. I get an A for my efforts. Even though effort starts with an E. Like E-hole. Which I was technically right about, and technically is the best type of correct. No! That is shocking. 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 Oh, I have my special move. Special move. Come on, Dad! Let's go. Yeah! High scores. Trying something on the PC. Look at that. See? Auto shut it set up for high scores, high stakes. Look at that. Look at that. We're sucking diesel now, sir. They're great. I love Valheim. What are we talking about? Shadow of Colossus. That's right, you're playing that. What are we talking about, Valheim? Yeah, I got into Valheim in one human, and poof, they disappear. I absolutely love Valheim. It's one of my favorite games. Me and Hook spent so many hours in that. So many hours. Nada, Leork, nada. Eagle sounds like a cheesy 90s term for porn and some shit. And that guy. That is probably true, but inappropriate. Valheim's going to 1.0 soon. Love that game. Yeah, we were playing it from the beta and everything, like. And we were masters at it. We were masturbators. I mean, masters at the beta. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I watched the guy play it once. Never got on it. Go try it. Try it out with friends. Fuck! Fucking stealthy boy. Yeah. Where are you? I don't think he likes it very much. Oh shit, there's two of them. Oh, what are you? Oh, you're one of them weirdos. Fuck. Right, just take him down at least, and then I can get Stevie Nicks over here. Just like a one-winged dove. Sir? Yeah, Dan, you did got him. Fuck that guy. I don't know how well he's going down, but we are shooting at him. We are doing the thing. Oh shit. This boy's wrecking the place. I don't like this. They're like zombie robots, but they get energy swords. I think that's a wee bit overkill. Oh, there we go. Yeah, take that, Spider-Man. Stasis net? Yes, we should take the station. Oh, fuck, right. And another one. It said there's more. Does that just mean this guy? My voice is breaking. I've been a bit unwell the past couple of days, so excuse me if my singing voice is not up to par. Problem is, my lover's got no money. But he's got his Trump beliefs. Got his Trump beliefs. And that's all we have to worry about, really, isn't it? Must really love the car. No, it's a Trumbalise. It's a real thing. I didn't make it up. I don't know why I did that. Oh, right, okay. That's why I did that. Right, okay. Maybe I'm supposed to try and get over there from here. Oh, what's up there? I am far too distracted by everything that's happening here in this game. I'm like, ooh, piece of candy. Piece of candy. Piece of candy. Must be like a theremin. Really. You know, you ever seen anyone play a theremin? Ah, we're going to the... Oh, I can't say that word out loud because Cleo will fucking shit herself. Sir? I shouldn't have done the second stasis gun, but God, fuck it. This is my house. Don't know where you've been. Lillian. Oh, Theremin is quite cool. It's... I don't know where you'd get one now. Or why you'd even need one, but... Kinda cool. Oh no, I'm about to die. That Once Human actually looks like a really good game. I must give that another go, because I think I've got a bit into the tutorial, and that was about it. Jesus, my voice keeps breaking. I'm like a teenager. Very little server play theremin once and it's totally an instrument, but do air guitar and you're in Egypt? Oh, I don't think so. I think air guitar's cool. Fuck! Oh, it made it! Once Human look decent. It's free as well, so you can just download it and play it. We're chatting about it in Hooks one last night as well, and Genshin Impact, although it's a gacha game, it's a fucking really good game too. Like, it's all about the using opposing elements and mixing elements and stuff that buff your attacks and things, and you can play it completely free. Ah, shit, these jabronis. And it takes a lot of the stuff from Breath of the Wild, which is kind of cool. Right, okay. Yeah, it's grand. You'll like it. You'll like it. You'll get into it. You'll be fine. You'll be grand. How do you play it in multiplayer? Fuck knows. It's like, you can play it in multiplayer. How do you play it in multiplayer? No. You know, we're not telling you. It's a secret. That's the actual game. That's the challenge of the game. First puzzle. Figure out how to play it in multiplayer. My lover's got no money. He's got his trombolese. Nope. You're dead, Spider-Man. Best thing about it, it's free. There's a lot of really good free games, to be fair. Like, see Genshin and Honkai Star Rail and stuff.
Shall we say the rarest
Again,
gym badge
it's
in Kanto.
a gotcha game. Oh, that's it.
You'll usually find them somewhere making dad jokes, you know? Yeah, but like you're one of those like shiny ones that
Ian,
everyone
I can
has
hear
because they were, like, in a
Ian
special
chatting
drop event or something like
and
that,
giving
you
me
know?
grief, and I was wondering, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? Ian sure there's himself. What's happened? Shit! Fuck! Shit! Fuck! It's all in the mind. Oh, I don't like this. Why is there three of them? Ian, what is happening? Anyone not following my buddy the internet, please do so. He has an ASMR voice. He plays a lot of RPGs. He was playing the medium the other day, and he really should try it on hard mode because medium seemed too easy for him. Riot Blaster! And I completely miss. Fucking hell. Back off. Ian just downloaded himself in the game. He did. Happy Irish, what's happening? Ian. Fucking hell, thank you very much for the resub. No one needs to spend a penny here. Even just coming in and chatting to this fucking old, bald man is more than enough. Yo. Ah, crap. Well, I'm not going to get the little girl who doesn't have a gun to shit. That would be kind of fucking weird, wouldn't it? Jesus, hard mode instead of medium. Take your blood money. No, just get your money's worth from the game, Ian. It's fine. You're the man platinum in all the Final Fantasy games. In that, though, what ones are left? I know you're doing 11 at the moment, and you're doing you just finished. You finished Tears of the Kingdom? Oh. Holy fucking sandwiches. What do you mean cleanse it? I have no weapons apart from the one I have. Fucking hell. What do you mean, get ready? Dan, we've no guns, apart from this one, which is slowly reloading itself. 6, 9, 10, 2, 13, 13, 3, 14, and the mainline one's left, and then a few of the side games. Ooh, nice one. It is well known fact that Hook dislikes Halo as well. He plays it just as punishment to himself. Just so he can make himself stronger, like Goku. You cheated baby robot, I know. And 11 just doing for fun. Oh, right, okay. Apologies, Ian, for the lies I told about you playing 11. Look out! Fuck. I am not doing well here. This jabroni has my trombolese, and I don't appreciate it. Oh, I think I'm supposed to be hacking. He's back. I'm shooting the wrong fucking area. Turns out I was the problem the entire time, as per usual. There is bits on his back I'm supposed to be shooting, but I ain't doing what I'm supposed to. I got a case of the supposeds. No. Sir. If you could turn around and let me get you from behind. Wait a minute, that didn't sound right. Stop facing me. It's weird. The eye contact is inappropriate. Would you be trying to do 9 out of 12 hours to get Excalibur? That is fierce. I think you've done 9, haven't you? Ah, I've been infected. I did it. No, I will not move, child. I wish I had some other weapon apart from this. I reckon 9 maybe the next one. I'm having a hankering to play it. 9 is awesome. Superman the way I phrase it. Some people might be worried. I know. Me, however, I would have that on a shirt. Speaking of shirts. Is this one inappropriate enough? Does this one cause some trauma? I think so. I think so. Oh, fuck. I got fucked. Shit. I'm very slowly getting there. I was not prepared for this fight. As Hook says all the time, like I said last time, it won't happen again. Fuck. Because I'll be dead, and that's why it won't happen again. Do, 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 do. Konami. Fuck off, ball of fucking spooge. Don't worry, Dan, we'll go on and smash it now this time. We're grand. I only died a wee bit. I only died because of death. Death was the only thing that held me back. I need to replay Metal Gear Solid. I love... Where's Metal Gear Solid? Where are you hiding, sir? Oh, there it is. Oh. Fucking love Metal Gear Solid. One of my favourite games. What's your favourite Metal Gear Solid? Does anyone here play Gears of War? Gears of War. E-hole. But the old school ones? Yes, I love Gears of War. And I haven't looked too much into that new one that's coming out, but it looks to be good. We're going to give her a present! Give the child a present. Let's go. The co-op mode they made for it. And GG. I did see that as well. You already shared it. But Gears of War is a wonderful game. Look at that. I can't stand the mess that you've made here. This really grains on me. Them hot dogs even edible. And why is she sunbathing? What's happening? What's going on here? Right, no, we're done. Right, okay. Do I have to talk to her? What am I talking about?
Looks like 8 and Edis are, in other words...
Does that mean more are coming?
Probably.
Probably.
But hey,
A little spin.
new and improved
Yep.
you and
I can do that in real life. I'm just not going to do it now.
What do you say?
Because I'm old and I get dizzy and I fall over and nap.
I have a surprise for you. I drew another picture.
Yeah, no, it's... Oh, I got a picture.
Ta-da!
Aw.
While thinking about you. Thanks for
No.
keeping me company and talking to me.
No problem, kiddo. I really like this one. Keep up the good work.
Leo, that is not you. Did you draw me a picture? No, you did not draw me a picture. Actually, what you did do is the other day we went out and you pooed 3 times and I had to carry 3 separate bags of poo. That was a thing that happened. That was a moment I did not want to share with you, but I did. And my hands were very, very warm. I probably need weapons. I don't have weapons. I could buy weapons. I'm going to watch Jurassic Park 3 with my wife. We've taken to watching shit action adventure movies on Wednesdays. Man, enjoy. Let me know when you get to the Fast and Furious franchise. No, it's just looking at the models. It's here I can buy guns. Yes. I am going to go for a stasis net. I am going to go for decoy gen. Oh, you're not going to do an animation for each one, are you? Yep, the animation. Watch a director's cut. There's extra dinosaurs. They're more dinosaur-y. Maybe a step too far. But you have to see Vin Diesel talk about family constantly. And then find out that John Cena is actually his brother for no reason whatsoever. Maybe Tokyo Drift. Tokyo Drift's good. BRB, not a problem. I'll try and find it. Yes. Physics Masterclass. It is. It is. Look, don't you be giving Tokyo Drift grief. Swear to God, I'll come over there and I'll race you. John Rambo, welcome, and thank you very much for signing the ledger as well. A rogue. Or a rouge. Right, I am going to ride the train. Drive the car. Internet, thank you very much for signing in. Beastmaster. I must see about making the butt below me bigger. That's not how that was supposed to sound. Don't take that the wrong way. I was making forward headrests, I can't help myself, but I bet there it is. Are you talking about, do you ever watch Speed 3 on Forward Head? Fucking hell, it was brilliant. I hate this bit. Right. There's an invisible bastard there. Look at him. Look at him. Sir, I see you. I see you. And I fucked it up. Already fucked it up. There's himself. Fucker. He's not even trying to hide, he is hiding. There we go. How I am doing good. I've been a bit icky, sicky, but you know what? I'm a bit better now. I'm having a ball with this game. It's a difficult one, but it's fun. Get some. See, my reckoning is if I keep me decoy for when that big baby fella comes. That didn't sound right. It should be a bit easier. Well, hopefully it's a bit easier. Right, so it's an auto kill for this guy. There we go. There we go, we're sucking diesel now. Is there like 12 more that show up? I can't remember. No. It's all good, it's all good, it's all good now. Ah, fuckles. Didn't do it right. Can I just go from here? Yeah, I didn't need to go up there at all, for fuck's sake. My lover's got no money, she's got a trombolese. Maybe Riot Blaster? Let's go. Right, this is the room of fuckery. Yeah, I'm not using my overdrive on these jabronis. Well, maybe in a wee bit. Actually, maybe whenever I get loads of them. Might use overdrive. Maybe it's one of them ones I should be using it more. That was a waste. That was a waste. That was a waste. I realized that was a waste as I did it. But I had to go for the kill shot. Did I get both? No, I didn't. I might use it for the multiple guys. No, I hacked that fucker. How fucking dare he? How dare he not be dead? This is the one where there's a few of them, isn't there? Yeah. There are several. Like, group them all together. Lads, can you all stand? I'm going to take a picture. And these all stand together. Oh, that was a lot better. Oh, no, I don't want you. And feck off. It's the baby. Decoy. You go over there, you fucking big baby. Okay, let's go. Stop facing me. Look away from me when I shoot you in the back. Right, over there. You go over that way. I don't think he cares. I don't think he either way, I don't think he's much fussed on what's happening here. But at least I'm doing a bit more damage than it was previously. There we go. We're sucking diesel nicer. Riot Blaster. Look at that. Stuck diesel, sir. Come on. Yes. He had no money and I gave him my trumbles. Alright, we still have a good bit of health as well. Not bad.
Welcome to Central Volta.
Under the right conditions, that filament will coact with its subject. This won't be nearly enough. I'll need more. Much more. If we are to cause a global chain reaction.
Global chain reaction?
Oh, just watch it again, right? Okay.
That filament will coact with its subject.
I peeked at Jacob's terminal the other day. It looks like a higher-ups are worried about some kind of black substance. Mad at myself for missing that. We all love the Father Ted around here. Such an underrated TV show. Now I feel bad. You should feel bad, Hook. How dare you make Mike feel bad? You should be ashamed of yourself, Hook. Go hang your head in shame.
Transferring dead filament. Designated payload is at 70%.
Look at that. I'm loving a good skybox. Look at that skybox. Right, okay. Now that's a good. It is. It's lovely, isn't it? It's lovely. And look at the fucking lore box.
That's all dead filament?
That's an. If you could snooze him, please.
All over the cradle.
I know I have a wee button here to do it. I'm just too lazy. Oh, I could have been doing shoutouts earlier on as well. I just never bothered because I got my button working. That's not a Viagra joke.
You still up for this?
And it's also not a button.
You bet.
This is where we fight Mr. X.
So we made
Resident Evil.
It's not a straight shot to the orbital elevator, is it?
Looks like we'll have
Me
to
getting agree with you. Yeah, button. I know. Ooh, what's in the red suitcase? Pulp Fiction. Oh, red gate heat. No, fuck off, red gate heat. I don't like them. Additional training, red zones. Yeah, sure we do. Sure we do. I'm doing that. Oh. Fuck.
I can't cleanse this.
Let's circle around.
Fuck, my aim is horrendous. Nope. Well, that almost went poorly.
Wonder what we can get for that at the shelter.
You know, whenever May brought up Gears of War earlier, and Gears of War was very funny in the sense that you would go into an area and it would be very open, and then you'd see all these wee barricades. You'd be like, ah, there's going to be a fight in here. This is what this area kind of gives me vibes of. There's wee puddles of bullshit, and then it's kind of open. There's going to be a fight, doesn't there? Fucking knew it. Why is this now a normal enemy? Why is this a thing? Why is a giant baby a normal enemy now that I have to fucking deal with? Can't even get around the vacuum. There we go. That's one down. And the baby fell. Ah, fucking missed! There we go. Sucking these on my sir. Do-do-do-do. Do you too? We do you too. Well, whilst we're here, look. Oh fuck! Right, okay. That didn't go well. That didn't go well. Suck it up, Buttercup. Let's go. The healing is very slow in this. That's one thing I will say. It does add the difficulty of it, like, but it's very fucking slow healing. Right, we are going to get some weapons. And some differs. Do we like it? I don't think very much. Too slow for what I'm looking to do for it. Big babies are too fucking awkward to take down. It's just a big baby. Ah, look, see, you thought you had me there, but you didn't. Oh, come on. I need to stop prematurely punishing my hacks. Burden, you're actually slaying, girl. Am I? Burden? Welcome on. What's happening? Be right back. Feeding time. Nice. I am in the middle of a 48-hour fast at the moment, so I've not been eating, but I'm fucking starving now. Burton is playing through a variety of different games. It was Tears of the Kingdom last I seen. How are you getting on, sir? Yeah. Well. 48-hour fast, what for? I try and do 1 or 2 of them per week because I'm too fucking fat and I'm trying to lose weight. I'm down about 2 stone now in the past month, so it's doing that and trying to get out and do steps as much as possible. No! Just kind of going as extreme and hardcore as possible just to try and get it off me. So hold on, how far? As long as no... There's another fucker going to show up. There's another fucker going to show up. Gonna come up with ads now as well, isn't it? The movie fasting thing. No. Oh, 27 hours. So 27 hours at the moment. Yes. Yeah. So still going. Still going. It'll be dinner time tomorrow by the time I get to finish. Why? Why would you want... Why would I want another thing to fight?
This one's different. Be careful.
It's like the baby, but I can shoot it from the front. It's like venom. Well, this is fine. It was not fine. I don't think it likes it very much. I don't think it's a huge fan of what I've just done. Oh, fuck, right. I need to pay more attention. Closer attention to what I'm doing. Think about what you're going to do before you do it. I have no more health. I know, I'm trying to. Ah, shit. Right, okay. Fuck. There we go. There we go. Minimal health. Maximum damage.
Is it safe for you to clear out all this black stuff?
I'm okay. I'm just breaking it up.
Breaking it up into what? Is there something down there? I feel like if I go down there, I'm going to die. I'm fucked, aren't I? I need help. I need help. Is there a... We're going to go back and get help.
Maybe if we can get it at the source?
Get it at the source. At the sauce. Heal up, heal up, heal up, heal up. There we go. Bump it.
We can stay here for a while, right?
I don't think so, Dan. We put another upgrade into my gun because I feel like it's not doing enough damage. 27's good going, fair play to you. Aye, it's more of a necessity than anything, but the second day does feel very good. Not going to lie. I might take a wee quick break, as there's a break about to start soon anyway. I'm going to run and go to the bathroom, but I'll be back in a wee second. Water only. Water, coffee, white monster, and electrolytes. And that's about it. But I'll be back in a wee second. Ooh, but it's neck and neck with Final Fantasy 9, which, to be honest, I'm not complaining about because both of them are phenomenal. I can understand why people like 9 or 7 more, but 8, I think it's because it was my first Final Fantasy game. I'm just like, oh, I love that game. Do I have any weapons? I have homing missiles. I have a stasis net. I have a decoy generator. Yes. That's, oh, when I buy them, does that knock them permanently? I thought I was just getting a one use out of them. Right, okay. I maybe should have been doing that more often in the game. Shit, that was my bad. Right, okay. Oi, can't park out there, mate. What's up here? Frickin' lasers.
We can use this to stop bots in their tracks.
Oh, happy days. Ah, fuck! Jerks with fucking lasers.
My bad, Diana.
All of it is my bad. Fucking hell, that was a difficult one. Oh, I don't want to use a red gate. Ah, was that all that was here? Oh no, there's more stuff. Right, okay.
I can't handle all of this.
Don't worry. I'll get us through.
Can I just avoid combat? Like, they have to fight the fuckers? Or maybe I could
Have you
just...
heard of the critically acclaimed MMORPG
Really,
Final
run,
Fantasy
Sir Robin?
14?
Really run away.
With an expanded free trial,
Look at this,
you can
boys,
play
hiding
through
behind
the
the pillar.
entirety of A Realm
That's the pillar
Reborn
that
and the
can do that way.
award-winning Heaven's Ward. Stormblood and Shadowbringers
Oh, he keeps
expansions
doing
up
it.
to level 80
Oh,
for
you
free
sneaky
with
fucker,
no
you're making me come down the
restrictions on
stairs.
playtime.
Teddy, what is happening? Take that! Teddy is like me if I was in better shape. And if you love Final Fantasy 14, go watch Teddy. Go look at his face when he plays it. Daddy, thank you for the 10 months. My goodness, sir, that's so generous. You really don't have to do it. But I appreciate you for it. #1 Twitch bot. For open mouth breathing here. We all love it though. No, me. I know, that's what I mean. We love it. Are you ever going to go back to the Saturday morning, like, live and kicking and SMTV live streams? Because they were good. They were a lot of good fun. Why did the lasers not go away? Am I supposed to head up? Okay. Why are the lasers still here? It's not shooting through the lasers. Fuck! Right, okay. Maybe I'll go down this way. I will do, I'll miss them. This month is my mega buzz. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean, sir. That's what I'm looking for. That's the sauce right there. Right. Now we break whatever this is. Opens a path in here into this really, really cramped and dark room. I'm sure everything is fucking fine. It leads down to some form of basement. Right, I'm going to go back up and actually see what was up the stairs then, because I don't want to be cutting myself off here. Look like there's another room. Oh, right, what's this? Okay, okay. I'm getting on well. I'm getting on well. Doing okay. Oh, right. Oh shit. Homicide, wee bitch.
It was 8 that forced Edith to kill everyone.
Oh, don't like this, no. See, I knew it was fucking bad. And see, never find a bus and then they all come at once. What the hell is this? Sir? Fucking Terminator looking bastard. You're looking well as always, Teddy. You are looking in a mirror. That's your problem. Yeah, I've been taking a leaf out of your book, and I've been fasting and doing a lot of steps during the day to try and get the weight down. So I'm about 2 stone off me now in the past month. I wasn't weighing myself initially. Initially, I was just checking to see how my clothes fit. And then I started weighing the other day then. I was like, right, okay. So I can feel a difference. And I can feel it in my clothes as well. Because at the moment, I'm wearing my skinny jeans, which I can never get under whenever I put on weight. They are not a jean to be worn after Christmas. It is always a nice feeling, but immediately I will eat all the food and then destroy it. So I'm going to try as much as possible to stay that way for a bit. Oh, I hope this doesn't fuck it up because that thing is in the way. No, it seems to still hit them. That's good. Oh fuck, there's another thing over there. That's a baby. Shit. Hate the babies. Hate the babies. Not babies in general, but the ones in this game. Why is there so much stuff happening? Why would anyone want this? Hello everyone. Playing Dead Space, I see. Ghost in the Fork. It is very, very Dead Space, isn't it? And I suppose the armor I'm wearing is kind of Dead Spacey. Welcome on. Dead Space, the remake, is wonderful. Get up, would you? Ah, crap. Perseverance and persistence, occasional traits isn't going to derail you. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I kind of put myself on for extra steps whenever I'm doing that, just to kind of keep myself right. This is not going well. Stasis net, decoy. That's what I'm not using. Yeah, I haven't been using my decoy properly, which is my own fault, really. Game really ramps up. It really does. The difficulty has just spiked. And see these fucking babies. My god, they're difficult. Oh, is there an invisible boy over there as well? For fuck's sake. That's not really fair. Look at that. There's a fucking invisible boy too. He's just hiding out, just being a prick. I need to find a way to get these guys down in a cool way. Back in Pragmata's Game of the Year conversation. What else came out this year? What's its... I guess it's just automatically going to be GTA. Or is it going to be Barbie Rewind? Is that going to be Game of the Year? What'll be your favourite gun? Mine's is the Piercer. To be honest, I like the carbine. Just your generic carbine. But I am a basic beach. I'm a basic beach. A basic beach? Yes, I am a beach who is basic. Yeah, Dan. That didn't help. That didn't help. It's on like Donkey Kong. We're slowly getting through them. They do just throw everything at you, don't they? Oh, he's on my team. Right, okay. I shouldn't have done that. The one I dislike the most, though, is the mines. I really don't like the mines. Truly be the future. I know. It's mental. It's mental. It's actually happening. It felt fake for so long. Ah, fucker. He's right in front of me and I can't even get past him. Fucker. I want to get these guys down so I can just focus on the baby. Right. Me and you now, kid. Come on, just attack. Come on, do something. So I can get around behind you. That sounded weird. You know what I mean? GTA 6 before... Yeah, I know. That is mental. For Half-Life? I know. I dodged the fuck out of that. That's not fair. What's in here? Oh, what are you? What's this? What's this? Decoy gen? Yes, that's what I'm looking for. Come on. Oh, you fucker. That did a good wee bit of damage. Like, there's a few games I'm looking forward to. One of them, which came out and I still haven't picked up yet, was the DLC for... Oh, what do you call it? What do you call that game? The DLC's called Ragnarok. Why can't I remember the name of it? Remember the name. Except I don't. Treasure full attention. Like a real baby. It is, it is. Here's the sauce. Yeah, I cannot multitask. I am a human man. Can she do this? The thing? She can. Sweet. What was the name? Happy Irish, you probably remember. I can't remember the name of that game series. We played it recently as well. Fuck. Where am I going? Oh, I'm just standing on this thing, right? Okay. Head to 8. Right. How do I... Oh, just go up here. Right, okay, just open this door. Game series with the Ragnarok DLC. It's not God of War. What I was looking to do. It's a RPG. Oh. No, not that, not that, not that, not that. Grand Blue Fantasy. Jesus Christ, why couldn't I remember that? Grand Blue Fantasy Ragnarok. The DLC, the base game was great, and I want to see about playing the DLC for it. I am going to go back and re-health up before I do anything, because otherwise I'm just going to die horrifically. Grand Blue Fantasy, that was it. Nice to have games to look forward to. Yeah, and there's ones that have come out I just haven't picked up yet. Just get time to play them as well. That's the one fun thing about streaming I like, is the fact that I don't think we brought back anything. Brought back nothing. That's a good thing I like about streaming. It forces me to kind of complete games as well, where normally I wouldn't. Not that I wouldn't. It's just that I can get easily distracted. Right, okay. Okay. Just bought Sinking City on sale. Thankfully, Game's original remaster. I've never heard of that. What is the Sinking City? Let's ride the trap. Drive the car. Third person detect. Ooh, that sounds good. That sounds really good, actually. I must have a wee look at that. I do like my horror. Well, let me rephrase that. I enjoy the horror games. I just don't like the wee scares it keeps giving me. Oh, no, 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 no. This is going to break. I'm going to fall through. This is going to... Okay, it didn't. I'm still going to go down there, though, aren't I? Assuming so.
This door's locked too.
Let me guess. More terminals?
Not this, at least. 2 terminals left. There's quite a bit of this game. Flim Flam was like, oh, you're going to be finished this, no problem. Oh, shit. One out of 5. Yeah! Oh, I did not see you. I think my lack of skill is my main problem. Can she do the thing? Yeah. Yeah, she can.
Watch out for that stuff.
Good job, you kid. Oh, Penny, you're way good to me. Does that not let me get that because there's someone trying to shoot me? Sir? Someone is. Ah, you. Nah, we'll just blast him. We'll just blast him. Definitely a wee skill issue. How fucking dare you? How dare you? I'm allowed to say it. You're not allowed to say it. Those are the rules. It's like bad words in Spanish. Apparently you're allowed to say them, but I'm not. Pinche Leoric. Oh, there it is. Híjole. Speaking the truth. Ian, you're my mod. You're supposed to be on my team. You're supposed to be stopping the abuse against me. You're supposed to be like, hey, you can't say that to him. He is a human man. And where is the last fucking thing? Oh, it's right here by the door. Collect all the energy on. Autobots transform and roll out. Health. Sandcastle. Yes. Definitely something to build on. Crap. This is a room where things are going to try and fight me. Here. Don't be so naughty, everyone. Be nice. Be nice. I am a fragile lasagna. Be nice to me.
We don't have time for this.
Ain't nobody got time for that. I don't know how these things keep falling for this. It is a... No! It's not a skill issue. It's only a skill issue if I say so. Look at that. I'm shooting and hacking at the same time. Like some sort of multitasking fucking ferret. Are ferrets known for their multitasking skills? They are now. Like the 80s classic that Ian loves so much, Ferrets, Bueller's Day Off. May, thanks for the butts. But how dare you fucking show me waft my hair? How fucking dare you? The audacity. Fucking swanning up here, showing off my fucking locks. I could grow that back at any time I want. Thank you as well. Stop teaming up on me. Not fair. Oh shit. No, you stop doing that. You stop doing that. The audacity. I don't want to target that guy. I want this guy here because he's roaming about the place like a fucking menace. Wow. RE6 remake Leon. Yeah, but with a graphical downgrade because he's actually bald underneath his fucking mod. Shit. I know I'm supposed to hack these things, but I don't have time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Yeah, you killed your own body. Fuck you. Oh, you're not dead? Why aren't you dead, sir? Oh, it's that wee cunt up there. It's doing that. You little fucker. I was wondering what was shooting bullshit at me. Nope. You refuses at all times to be careful. Fuck you, care. We do not care it. I'm surprised she can play and read chat at the same time. Well, I keep having to pause the game. There is a thing called streamer brain. I suffer from normal brain though, it's my problem. Where you do... Stop reloading. You do kind of use less of your brain function because you're trying to read chat, you're trying to focus and talk as well at the same time, all in one go. But for me, it's just a lack of intelligence issue, I think. My bad. Get the energon. Ooh, decoy generator.
Only one left. It's gotta be close.
Yep.
It's gotta be me.
Don't want to keep her waiting, right?
So one more door to unlock. Can I just go out this way then? I have to... Ooh. Training data.
What training sims did we get?
Well, I don't know, Diana. Fucking hell. You must put your special points in the charisma? I wish. Can't even spell charisma. Can't even spell the riz. I'm okay health-wise, I think. I need to go in this door now? Oh, this room looks like some bullshit.
Treat. Bitch.
Oh, excuse me?
John
No.
Rambo has
What do you say?
decided to give Cleo a treat.
Bitch.
No, no. I'm not gonna
What
give
if
you
she
a treat if
knows?
you call me
She
that.
knows.
What do you say?
Please. 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 Bitch. Please.
Cleo, you get a treat. You can thank John for that one. You going to eat it properly? She is. She's going to nom there. There she is. A good girl. She is. She's the bestest of the pups. The bestest of the pups. Easy charisma. Look at the wee tail wag. I know. She loves her wee treats. Although, it used to be dentist sticks. Hasn't been dentist sticks now in a little while because... Ooh, I'm about to get whapped. Hasn't been dentist sticks in a little bit. Oh, right, okay. I could just do that. I probably should have saved that for something a bit more. Go inside this circle. Give me your testicle lights. Because there's probably something bigger coming along. What's your supposed to grab? You have a dog doing everything. Oh, I know. Like, dogs are the best people. No one else, whenever you come home after work, greets you at the door going, "Oh my god, you're finally home. I didn't think you'd ever be back and now you're here and it's amazing." But Cleo is also on a journey with me to lose weight. So whenever I'm out walking, she's coming with me. And we've been hitting a lot of the forests, which is kind of cool. Ah, crap. I knew there'd be more shit.
Stop skittering around.
Does this reset at all? No, it doesn't. I wasted it. What the hell's wrong with me today? Tail. No, I knew what you meant. I didn't think the dog had told me a story and it was about a wag and she was regaling it to me. I didn't think that was happening. I knew you meant tail. Híjole. No, 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 unacceptable. This is true. It's about a dog. Unacceptable. You should be ashamed of yourself. Don't let it happen again. And you have to say 3 Hail Marys and 10 Our Fathers now. Stop skittering around. And I tell you what, you come in here, you talk about your John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says I just whooped your ass. And that's the bottom line. Oh yeah. Cup of coffee for the big time. Yeah. Cup of coffee for the big time. What? We don't condone that type of behavior. It's very proper around these parts. This is true. This is true. What? What did I do? I didn't do anything. It wasn't me. Can't prove anything. These are not the droids you're looking for. And that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Oh yeah. I speak only for myself. It's true. Whoa, 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 whoa. We're down to 2 of us. We're down to 2 of us. If you could calm down for 1 wee minute, we'd be sweet. Droids are looking for you. They are. They're very, very fond of me. Which, to be fair, I do appreciate the attention that they're giving me, but at the same time, the fact that they're trying to saw me in half with their wee tiny legs it's cause for concern. I'm not going to lie. No. If you say shite, shite. Or maybe me just imposing my Irishness on them. These droids would be in the ass. Hem droids, yes, yes, Ian. Yes. I love it. I love it. It's on now. What? What? That's not a taxi. Do you know what the internal temperature of a tauntaun is? And a tauntaun is one of the creatures in the Star Wars universe. It's on Hoth, the ice planet. The internal temperature of a tauntaun is lukewarm. Lukewarm. I'll be here all week.
This black stuff is all that's left.
Did the dead filament eat them?
Nom 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 nom.
Hey, Diana, think you can cleanse infected humans?
No. Once their cells get eaten away, they're gone for good.
Well, that's not good. Teddy, I appreciate the butts, but I don't appreciate the fact that you said for fuck's sake, Leorc. It hurt. My own emote hurts my own feelings. How dare you? You could have used the proud to be bald one, but no. You decided to go with that one. You decided to cause me a little bit of grief and a little bit of sadness. But you're also another baldy bearded man, so it's okay, you're forgiven. Up or down? I'm not going up or down. Well, probably up first. Like the K-pop Demon Hunter song, we're going up, up, up. We are golden. Actually, that wasn't a bad film. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that film.
Just covered it up. Disgusting.
I'm tempted to rewatch one of my favorite films of all times. Many's like Studio Ghibli films. See Princess Mononoke. Oh, love that show. I know. It was good. Absolute tunes. It was a good film. It was a good film. They were a bop. Now, hearing them about 348 million times on the radio probably took away their fucking... Fucking dickhead. Probably took away their appeal, but at the same time, does that hurt him? Did the lasers hurt him? Because if they do, then yay. If they don't, then nay. I wonder if I could just avoid him. Yeah. Howlmoon's castle tattoo. I seen your more recent tattoos as well, Teddy, and they were class. I have ideas for my next one. Ideas. Oh! He just dropped back. That was kind of cool. Not so much because he tried to kill me with it, but just in general. I probably shouldn't have done the other stasis net. Fuck it. Fuck it. It's happening. It's happening. I may have even booked another one. They're so addictive. I love tattoos. I think tattoos are phenomenal. I love the fact that they, for a lot of people, they mean something. They're an expression of something. Either something to do with a memory, something in your past, something to do with your personality, how you feel about yourself. I fucking love tattoos. People are like, oh, what's that going to look like when you're 80? And I was like, it's going to look fucking badass because I'll be an 80-year-old covered in tattoos. What the fuck are you talking about? Oh, you thought you'd get me with that? You thought you would get me with a rock bottom? But not me. You're not going to get Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold come in, hit you with a stunner, 1, 2, 3. And that's the bottom line. Have you seen the coolest Star Wars tattoo ever? No. Is it a whole pile of dust and it's supposed to be Alderaan or something? Oh, there's the thing. Stupid, sexy, untattooed 80-year-old flexing. I know. What do they think? You know, everyone's like, oh, your tattoos are going to look wrinkly. And I was all, I know. And they'll be fucking badass wrinkly tattoos. Snow Speeder tying up like, yes, I have seen that. I have seen that. That's brilliant. Very good. Very good. Sammy! Welcome, man. What is happening, brother? What is down here, then? What do you want me to go down here? Ah, it just leads me to the other side. Very good, very good, very good. Sammy! Okay, my shout out thing still isn't working. Ian, would you mind giving Sammy a wee shout out there? My first thought was someone turning on them all. That would also be kind of cool. Thank you very much. Dank u wel. I spoke in Dutch. If I say dank u wel, it's double Dutch. Shout out to Colin for trying. I don't know what that is. I think that might be Frosty Tools, which I've stopped using, and I think it's taking the huff on me now. Right, I might go back and just, before I go through this big door, I might go back and just recharge. I don't protest. I will play this game eventually, probably in Japanese after hearing the differences between Japanese. Oh, the Japanese voice is cool in it then. Oh, very nice, very nice. Mr. Worldwide, no stay me because spoilers. Not a problem, Sammy. Thank you very much, Ian, for just calling on. Appreciate it, buddy. Oh, did we find something? We did. Give her prison. Sandcastle. Let's go. Yeah, it's edgy. Where you can't go wrong and listen to Japanese. Oh, yeah, you can't go wrong if you listen to English or Japanese. There's a few of them like that, like Jujutsu Kaisen, Attack on Titan, Bleach, Solo Leveling, all great either Japanese or English.
Why do people build sandcastles anyway? They always crumble. Wouldn't Wouldn't it be better to make them out of something stronger?
That's the fun part. You build it quick as you can, and it falls apart just as fast.
And you build a moat. We do it for the emotes. The emotes? The emotes are actually based on the water that we build around our sandcastles. There we go. I figured it out. Oh, Evan's a novel for me. I know I listened to that one in Korean. I haven't heard it in Korean. Okay. My Japanese is sitting right. I love the English voice actor for Solo Leveling. And then I obviously have my Igris tattoo on my arm as well. Because Igris is my favorite character. I'm sorry, I just noticed that this game's audio is low, at least for me. Is it? Sorry, I'm just hearing it directly from the game. I'll bump it up a little bit. You let me know if that's good, bad, or not sure about the rest. No, not emotes. It is. It's emotes, because we're all emotes, you know, now. Mate, thank you very much for letting me know. I had no idea. Hook, why did you not let me know? He's not even here, and I'm just leaving him. Hook. Son of a bitch. Swanning it. Yeah, 2 hours later. I'm sorry, not a problem. It's fucking cheapers. As long as I can hear it fine, it's okay. And I'm the most important person when it comes to hearing it. That sounded so bad. Yeah, in my defense, I'm on mobile. Jesus, don't be worrying about it. We're here for the banter. We're here for the chats. I think my preference comes to reading the webtoons first before reading the anime. That in certain games. See, we Solo Leveling, I watched the anime first and then bought the manga, which is a great read if you ever read it. Finally sitting down and legitimately tuning in. I'm horrible. You're not. You're the best. Do not say that. Do not say that. I'm the same as well. There's constantly days I'm out cooking in the kitchen. Like, the internet has streams to remind me that I have to cook food. When he goes live, I'm like, shit, I have to make dinner. So I'll hop him on in the kitchen. And everyone gets to listen to Ian's voice. The problem is, Ian is too confident sounding, and you might end up falling asleep on the hob and dying. Sounds so good. I forgot the game audio. Jesus, the compliments are flying in. Thank you very much. Ghost in the Fork, you had your first chat today, and I forgot that I paid you to say the nice things to me. I do appreciate it. Noise on mobiles when all is on. I can be either or. Shit, this guy. This guy. Constantly hungry on stream because folks are chatting about dinner. Folks are chatting about dinner. Yeah. It's just the time of day. Well, especially for the EU folks when you stream. Well, it's way up here. Well, that's not really fair. Wonder if that'll distract him. Will he figure it out? Who knows? I don't even know where his weak spot is. Might be the wee bum nipples he has there. But they are tiny bum nipples, so I don't know. Oh, he's aiming for both, right? Okay, this guy isn't your average bear. Boo, boo. Dropping down like a Dark Souls boss. I know, he's like a phase 2 Dark Souls boss, isn't he? He's a fast boy. He's like a fucking armored core as well, isn't he? If the boss has no weak spot, then the whole boss is the weak spot. Yes. Enjoy the rest of PRAGMATA, Mr. World. Sammy, no problem. Thank you for coming on. What fucking emote is that, me? Sup time? You get that just, you hydrate. But not too much, because that can lead to drowning. Fucker. Let me get you in your bum nipples. Yeah, I got Homo missiles too, bitch. Riot Blaster. Sounds like a cool transformer. Bearish. Been playing Armored Core recently, grinding the missions for the fancy robot. Ooh, very nice. I enjoyed Armored Core 6. I must get back into it. Ah, there we go. Some combat. Some combat. Whoa! Sir. Calm yourself. I don't think I'm doing actual much damage. I think I just have to try and keep trying to get his differ up. And by differ up, I mean he's like wee stun bar. Stun bar sounds like an Irish name, doesn't it? Stun bar Hogan. Stun bar, stunningly good, I know. Stunning. Stunning. Fight through it, fight through it. We got you, we got you. Fucking. That cat. I know I keep going through the purple nodes, but I'm trying to go for, as the crow flies, path of least resistance. I'm off, enjoy the rest of it. Not a problem, mate. Thank you so much for calling on. And thanks for the bots. Thank you for the bots. Like I said before, anybody that's not following May, please do so. She is a phenomenal streamer and that's on a great stream. I think she has more of a settled schedule and stuff now as well, which is really cool. Oh, no. I'm just mussing everything now. Right, okay. Wee bit of heal, wee bit of heal. Wee bit of heal, okay. Oh, I forgot where I was. I think we're getting close. I think we're getting close, Diane. Just saying. Yeah, you fell into my trap again. Oh no. Yes, I think this is him. This is him. Booyah! Oh no, he's still alive. Shit. That was not him. False alarm. It was not him. Watch out! But wait, there's more! This is what you could have won. Man. I got better things to do than die. What are you? Coma missiles? Already got them. Go on, one more. That should be him. Am I waiting to go into a cutscene or something? Is that what's happening? No, I got him. Got him. I hope this doesn't become a thing where he's just a normal boss from this point on. And I have to deal with like fucking old sandwich McGee every 5 seconds. And which way am I going? This way? Big door? I feel like that. No, that's where I came in. A regular enemy, just, yeah, I'm just a normal guy now. There's 12 of us. Fight us all. Come on, you can do it. I'm like,
Looks like Higgins has been out of contact for a while. This is the most advanced research lab in the entire cradle. Higgins was probably right in that room.
Was with him too.
That's for you must die difficulty it is. Leon can do it no bother though. Leon's fine. Leon has the hair for it, you see. I might go back and... No, we just keep going. I'm sure there'll be a save point before anything big comes up. It wouldn't do that to me, would it? Would totally do that to me.
Again and again, I was a fool to trust them. But now, he's got so much of me.
So that's how his daughter died. That's awful.
I'm sorry, Daisy, I could save you. I wasn't there when you needed me. Your dad is complete fool. The same thing happened in your other past. I was already deep in research in the moon experiment with the filament and living organisms, thinking it was the only one that could save her. I threw myself in the memoir. Her doctor. It's not that way. It's this way. Oh, there's 8.
I'm so sorry. Please.
Doctor? His mental acuity is degenerating rapidly.
Oh, Daisy. Honey, I was so close. Earth and Delphi. They took you from me.
Right, I'm going to be old and go to bed. Teddy, you're not old. You're younger than me. But enjoy. Thank you very much for coming on. You enjoy your sleeps.
Cause of death. Cardiac arrest from acute exposure to dead filament. Memory capture complete, Dr. Higgins.
Dead filament, huh?
Oh, crap. Night, Teddy. Night. You have a good night, sir.
Okay. Back to work, kiddo.
The doctor's dead?
Yeah. And he left his work to end.
What do you mean Hook's not there? He's on stream there. With the girl. He's the girl android on your back. Ah, fair play. Ah, fair play.
Hugh, there. That's our way into the orbital elevator.
Right, we are going to heal before we do this shit.
Coming to stop.
Get the message from... Hey, can I have your full address so I can get the correct game sent? Maybe your address on the information. Right, okay, I'll sort you in a minute. That's my Final Fantasy 14. I wonder if I can get a wee sneaky upgrade here before I go.
Your suit's all better now.
Yeah, sure. I'm not dying underneath it or anything. It's all good. It's all good, Ned. It's not all good, Ned. It's all bad in the intermittent sandwich merchant. I didn't really look too much into the mods. I kind of just picked what ones I liked and kind of went with that. Wait, hold on. Is that the rest of the map? I thought it was coming up towards the end. Never mind. Call got cancelled. I'll be in your hair. I mean, sometimes your words hurt. Sometimes they hurt. I could have hair if I want. I have hair. Here in a bag. Here in a bag. Fucking here in a bag. Comes from a place of love. No. It's bald abuse is what it is. Bald abuse. Actually, you know what? It was passed in court in Scotland, so it's actually legal in the UK now. They make fun of someone from being bald is deemed sexual harassment in the workplace. I'm just saying, I am being harassed. I am being victimized. No, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, Google it. I swear to God, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. So me and Teddy, we're being abused. We are being harassed. And we don't approve. No. I'm assuming there's ones behind me too. Nope, there's just fucking lasers. Of course there is. Of course there is. Why wouldn't there be lasers? Why would you not want lasers fucking behind you? If you lads can just go there and do with him. You're going to get stasis locked. And then we're going to do this. Where the fuck did he go? Oh, more shit! No, fuck off. Lads, fuck away off. Come on. That's nuts. It's not nuts. You can't get nuts up your ball. It doesn't work that way. What are you on about? What are you on about? What are you on about? Holy fucking shit. You're gonna have to explain yourself. What do you have it? Sometimes I wonder which one it's actually hacking because I'm looking at the wrong one. I enjoy that you take so much fun out of my accent. Just, it's bald abuse, it's accent abuse, it's disgraceful, shocking. Aye, dramatico Leoric. I know what that means. I don't even have to Google translate that fucking one. Che me. Híjole. Jacer Racer, thank you for signing the leisure. Welcome on. What is happening? Ignore the bald glare on your screen. It's only me. It's only me. Holy cow, welcome on. Bam! Yes, Konami, open them. That's how we do it. That's how we do it. Ah, who's this going? Wait, does this work on them? See if this works on them. It fucking works on... Oh my fucking god. Oh my fucking god. Oh my fucking god. I've been shooting these cunts the entire time when I could have just got rid of their dead filament. Fuck off. fuck away off. Jesus Christ. Apologies for the abuse. Jacer's not champ. You deserve that from the ream of abuse. I just did there now. Oh my fucking god. I don't believe that. No, Jacer Racer's the champion now. I don't want to wait till you recharge, because I found out apparently you have an ability that can get rid of these guys. Their sort of armor, and you didn't tell me. Closer. What do you mean? You're not the champion no more. Nuh-uh-uh. Nuh-uh-uh. You didn't say the magic word. Uh-uh-uh. Right, where are you, you little cunt? Oh my god, facepalm. I know! I know! Oh, we may have ads. We may have ads. Apologies if you get stuck in ads, folks. It's all Hook's fault. We should blame him. Fucking hell. Lamash was like, we don't even have enough game left to do a full stream. Why is he always wrong about everything? You don't have enough game left to do a full stream. I'm going to have to go late to just finish this now. Right, you are on my team now, kid. So are you. Fight that other guy. Fight the other boys. No, not me. I'm a real boy. I'm the leader. I decide when we go. No, this is my stream. I'm the fucking leader here. That's why they call me Baldy man. Because it's my name. Right, you two fight amongst yourselves. Or just let me kill you. Oh, they're back. Like that time Backstreet was back. Remember that? Remember when Backstreet was back? I don't think these guys do because they're alien space robots. I bet they don't even know who Backstreet Boys is. Anyone remember New Kids on the Block? That's a blast from the past. Oh. Insert mock GIF here. Way off. Baldylocks. Yes, I am Baldylocks. That is true. That is true. That a Marky Mark? I know. Do you know Mark Wahlberg was supposed to be in the Backstreet Boys? Or no, New Kids on the Block, but he was in prison. Never got to go. Right, lads, we're going to do the big move. Dan, whack them. Fucking look at that. Look at that. Look at the carnage I have thrown. Well, what are you going to do now, kid? What he's going to do now? Hey, I'm running round the house with my wee hatchet on me. Wee hatchet on me. Wee hatchet on me. I'm running round the house. I don't know what that was. That was just a noise, and I don't approve of it. No E. No E. It is minus E. It lacks all the requirements of an E. Yes, did I shoot the giant baby in the head and kill it? Maybe. Maybe. Am I sorry? No. Am I shooting this giant ball in its testicles? Yes. But I don't want to. It's making me do it. Yeah, they are. Don't get excited. How fucking dare you? Oh, still lame. Fuck. You get back, little tiny girl. Oh my god, you need to play ELOZ game? I'm sure you won't. Because Tears of the Zelda? The Legend of Zelda. Also, wait, Tears of the Zelda? What? Need to play one? I have played Zelda games. I have Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. I also think I have the older Link's Awakening. Link to the Past was always my favourite one, though. Wow. Wow. I'm playing Skyward... No, hold on. No, you need to play Link's Awakening. Right, I'll play Link's Awakening. Right, you know what? Deal. I'll play Link's Awakening. But for someone who doesn't like it when people use acronyms on their stream, how fucking dare you kick off that I didn't get the acronym that you had put in? Like, I just didn't automatically assume what it was. How fucking dare you? Oh my god, don't even. No. LMAO. No. LOL. RNG. Fucking whatever. Words. Shut up. It's just Talaz. What's Talaz? What you Talazing about? Fuck up. Fucking coming in here and Talazing over my stream. Giving me grief. Right, so does this work on him too? See if it does, Dan, you're fucked. No, it doesn't. Oh, it does! Dan, you're a wee bitch. Oh, there's two of them. Oh, there's three of them. Right, okay. All of the friends. All of the friends. All of these turn round. The Legends of Zelds, yes. No, I have a Switch here. I could play Zelda No Baller. It's the grief. It's the grief because I'm old. That's the bit I don't appreciate. That's the bit I don't appreciate. Just because May is like 25, she's fucking coming in here slagging off a 42-year-old elderly man. Bald and age abuse. I don't have charm. I have lucky charms. Because I'm Irish. Right.
I'll take care of it. Alright. One core down.
It's just my think of we guys first. Oh my god, that was class. What was class? My gameplay skills? I know, and you were doubting me earlier.
This is some BS.
It is? I fucking agree with you.
I'll take care of
Queen V, welcome in. Thank you for signing the ledger. What is happening? Oh no, the Lucky Charms deal. What did I say? What did I say about Lucky Charms? I don't remember the words I say. The Ark, what's happening? Wait, that's my name. Why would I ask that? I don't know. Gingy, thank you very much for signing the ledger. Look at that, you're close to beating the boss as well. Getting up there. This is not the way I'm supposed to go, but I'm assuming there's some sort of treat or some sort of... No, there's fuck all. There's fuck all! This place was a lie. This place was a fucking lie. Look at that. There's nothing here. Your head is looking nice and bald today, as opposed to what? Filled with hair? Memory loss added to the charm. What? Turbo Benzo? Jesus. All the Aussies coming in now. Thank you very much. Lurk, I'm from my meeting. I hope you have a good meeting. I hope they can't hear me, because I'll be shouting things like fuck. And it would bring sadness upon them.
You know how Eight's trying to send Death Element to Earth, right? Do you really think that's what the Doctor wanted?
can't say, kiddo. The doctor was in a bad spot there at the end.
He was dead? Of course he was in a bad fucking spot. Jesus. Gee, thank God you're not a doctor. Not a doctor. Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.
Wouldn't want all this.
If that's how you feel, then that's how it is. I work for you.
Yeah.
I don't start work for another hour and a half. I have 3 meetings and the dentist today. Oh, the dentist. Trying to get an appointment with them is like pulling teeth. You have to fight tooth and nail for an appointment with the dentist. But as long as they can get to the root of the problem, that's all that matters. How's the arc? I'm doing good. Doing good. I am in the office tomorrow, which I'm not looking forward to, but it's my last office day then, which is good. Thursdays, where are you? Oh, Australia. They are in the future. They already know what's going to happen. A phone replaced and flaws, so I have to sort it out. You do that, you get it sorted. Aussie land! The upside down. The in-between. Go all in for the weapon here. Can't, sorry, can. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Oi, oi, oi! I can't believe I didn't know that automatically replenishes those. What fucking bullshit. Orbital elevator access. Oh, I am getting near the end. You love amongst the kangaroos? I was going to say you lived amongst them, but you love... Why? Where it snows in summer? Yes. Sorry, I didn't mean to be flat out asked, by the way. No, May's good people. May's good people. Amongst the kangaroos. I don't think this is where I was supposed to go. Fuck. Right. Live. I don't love them, they're annoying. Hey, don't use my own emotes against me. How fucking dare you. Coming in here, giving me abuse. I'm a human man. No, no, not my Ichigo one, no. The Australian deers, like they run out in the road and cause... Did you ever fight one? Like, do you ever just get in a big punch up with one? That's saying... Or, right, but I don't think that's where I'm supposed to go. This doesn't feel right. There was one at the very top of the platform. Cargo terminal, central. Maybe it is orbital access. I don't know. I don't know. Sadly, not yet. I did hit one with my car though, but it was. I bet you the kangaroo just got back up and the car was damaged. Oh, thank you very much for the Proud Baby Bald on-screen celebration. I don't even see them. Oh, May's champion. Oh, May's fucking champion now. Cannot be stopped. Oh, this was the one, right? Okay, it just looked like an area, earlier area. Earlier area. Fucking words. Just smacked his tail and jumped across the road in the dark, little shit. He was just like, fuck you, car. They should have such horrible luck with deer. I would say they would do some serious damage. We don't really have much in regards to deer. It's more badgers and foxes.
So how's the packing coming?
We have nothing that can kill you.
Splendid. Thanks to you.
Except maybe food poisoning. That'd be the only thing.
Shipment for Earth is almost ready.
Ghost in the Fork, thank you so much for the lurk, and thank you very much for all the chats tonight as well. You've been an absolute legend. I killed one of them and made a bad choice to take one with me and get it butchered. It cost me $100. Oh, right, okay. But why was it the bad choice, though? Aren't badgers a pain in the ass for you in your garden? No, it's more out in the roads. You see them get hit by cars and stuff out in the roads. They wouldn't be in your garden or anything.
No.
And they're nocturnal, so they only come out at night time.
I'm going to Earth with you. You still don't understand.
It was a doe, didn't have a ton of meat on it, nothing usable for... Ah, that sucks. That kind of sucks. Right, okay. So it cost you some dough then as well? Cost a buck or two? No, well, it wasn't a buck, it was dough. Fuck's sake, Leo.
She's more than that.
You get it on deer jerky though? Well, that's handy.
And she's not something for you to use and throw away.
Yeah, you can't see my face, so I'm using my hands to express myself.
You're beyond repair. This is where we part ways. For good.
Let's rock and roll. Yeah, this is definitely later in the game than where I am. Apologies if I'm spoiling anything. If anything is inappropriate or wrong, it's Vick's fault. We just blame him. But I'm loving this game. It's really fun. This not so much. I don't like this. I don't know why this is a thing. I don't know why I now have to fight this tentacle woman. Ah, I know her weakness already. 10 tickles. 10 tickles will defeat her. My brother rode off his super from a deer. The deer was like fast cars in the English countryside. I think not. Ran straight into the windscreen. Oh, fuck, that doesn't sound good. As it stands, I'm being a bit cheaty with it. Added a few mods to alter the way the hacking works. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. I'm also writing through the story. Yeah. Well, this is fun. I wonder if her ability thing works on that too. It probably does. I'm just too... Right, okay. Okay. Oh, she moves out of the way. Well, when I say mods, you're talking about game mods? Yeah, yeah. Special mods? Yeah. Someone shouted mod for this boss. Oh, and the Squidward. Oh my god, that'd be good, wouldn't it? Oh, fuck, right, okay. Ah, she hits hard. Hits hard! Like this music, though. It is quite good, isn't it? Can we change the girl to SpongeBob? Yes, yes, we can. And you and the Patrick. You have to get the wee ball. Yeah, I think that's what we're naming. I think her head. Ah, it still got me. Right, okay. Oh, what's she doing? No! No, we keep up, we keep up. Sorry, folks, I'm missing chat, Let the music go, Sandy Cheeks. Oh, I like that. So you gotta get the afro from the afro. Yeah, yeah, we have to kill the afro, apparently, because we're bald and we hate hair. That's what it is. I enjoy that the mods are basically changing Diana's outfit. Just wish there were a way to actually add outfits and not replace the ones that existed. Yeah! You never know. Someone will come up with something. There's a lot of smart people out there. Oh fuck, I'm about to die, about to die. I don't have much health left. Fuck. How about no? How about you just go away and leave me alone? Fuck, right, okay. Shockwave gun, let's go. Shockwave. Yes! We're going to do that like 4 times. Well, that's fun. That's okay. Yeah. Oh fuck, right, okay. I was too close. I was too close. Oh shit. She got me with the backer. She's gonna lash out. Oh yes, what are you gonna do there? Look, what are you gonna do there? Okay, second one down, second one down. Right. I'm going to join there in the nightclub. I've an hour for drive tomorrow. Ian, not a problem. Thank you very much for coming on as well, chatting, buddy. You go have a good night, and I'll catch you in your stream tomorrow. That was not what I was expecting. I don't think I'm beating this girl. Well, that kind of sucks. Oh, so it's like an extra hack now I have to do? Fucking hell. Right, okay. Oh shit, I'm almost dead. I've like 8 health left. Oh, we're fucked, we're fucked. We're proper fucked, Dan. Yeah, she got me. Right, okay. I think there's items as well I can buy for Diane to revive me, and I just don't think I've ever used them. Good fight, though. Good fight.
What should we do?
We should buy some upgrades. What I'm thinking. Hello and good night. Backfire, hacking, abilities. Busters, repair, hack, engage, node slot. You're a node slot. did see something for Diane to revive. Quick hybrid combust boost mode. Peace champion. Can we equip with a tram terminal? Freeze, confuse. Critical shot. Boosters. Maybe them as well. Auto hacking too. Maybe include that too as well. Because I don't think I've actually used much of these upgrades at all. Adorable. This might help out a little bit. Attachments. Repair up, yeah. Really need something to kind of revive me if I die. I don't think I have anything like that. You have anything, Mr. Man?
Training sim data has arrived.
No, I don't want training sim
Sure
data.
to give it a try.
Want that, performance boost? Nah, fuck it. We'll give it another go, because I think I have an idea now of how to beat her. Would love a wee bit more distance, though. Right, okay. Oh, and there's a button for use last loadout as well. I could use that. Min, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. What are you doing? There's no need for that at all. Well, come on. What is happening? How are you getting on? Are you just up? No longer resets hacking matrix. That's not really much of an issue. I need something to revive me. Self-defense response. Which is damage received when your HP's below. No, we'll keep going. We'll keep going. We'll give it a go. We'll give it a shot. See how we get on there. Moonscape Box, what is the story? How are we getting on?
What's the Elvish
he got Queen V got one. Ginge, Egan, Zan, Lecoq. Actually, all people I know as well. That was awesome. Can't stay at work. Just wanted to... Not a problem, and thank you very much for coming on. Of course, my internet had to blip out. I don't know why it's happening downtime. Oh, no way. You look at them emotes, Queen V.
I'm hanging in there, but all those dead filament spikes are throwing me off.
Right. Left. I can skip this now, I think. Give me the option, skip.
We'll stop you no matter what.
Oh no, it's just cut straight to the fight. Right, okay. You son of a gun. Remember Ada? Fucker. You're a bitch. Fucking remember Ada. Fucking hell. That sounded like Butch. Oh my god, leave my accent alone. I am fucking tanking this one. For fuck's sake. Wow, she slapped you. Yep, she did. You duck? Oh my god. Mate. How fucking dare you? How fucking dare you? I'm trying to... Ah, this one's fucked. This one's fucked. Butch slapped you. My god, the creep. I don't deserve this. Okay, maybe I deserve it a little bit. Die. Are you in the office tomorrow? I am in the office tomorrow, but I think this is the last boss, so I'm trying to see if I can beat her.
Damn, not again.
Ah. Shit. That's, the thing is, not dying. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Oh my god, not dying. Oh, damn. I'm sorry, what? That's just some bullshit. There you go, take that. Although, I have no extra health, so I'm kind of fucked anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I don't think I'm going to survive it. But you know what? You know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. I thank you very much for the hype train, folks, as well. You're very, very kind. You're well good to me. Even when you're giving me grief. I wonder how much damage that was it. Not a huge amount, unfortunately. We're probably going to go down to the third phase, but even at that, I'm not going to survive it. Yeah, we got into the third phase, but we're not going to get her. I have too low health, and I'm not skilled enough to do it. My fat is sealed. In my belly. Fucking bullshit. I don't think I have to keep doing that as well. No, maze jump. Come on. Fuck. Fuck off, Filament. Fuck! I'm trapped, I'm trapped, I'm trapped, I'm trapped, I'm fucked, I'm fucked, I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dead. Fuck. My goodness. My goodness gracious me.
It's gonna go great next time.
I love your optimism, but I'm not feeling it. I am not feeling it. I need some way to get revived. There must be something. Eco generator, duration.
Fucking diabolical.
Stasis net? Yeah, let's upgrade some stuff. Fucking diabolical. And we upgrade our homing missiles a little bit too. Do they do more damage? Lock on targets. Just fucking upgrade. Upgrade our shit! Use last loadout. Yes. Yes. Time save. Really shiny looking.
Can't believe 8 is controlling all that black stuff.
Can't believe 789. Rukia! What is happening? How are you getting on?
I got this, Hugh. We'll stop you no matter what.
Well, unless you kill us, then we won't stop you. Then you won. Weird, creepy octopus lady.
Stop! You'll hurt innocent people. Death filament, go! Splitting the house. Time for a cleanup.
I'm hoping it's doing a little bit more damage than it was previously. God only knows, though. God only knows. Hope cool thing's good. Yeah, just in the lurky loot. Gotta show some love. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming on.
I won't let you paint the world.
Ricky, what is the crack with you? What are you playing recently? Playing Snot Rocket? I have no idea what that is. It sounds horrific. Ah, no, I'm taking damage. I don't like the fact that the game doesn't really give you any help in the boss arena, in the fight. Just stupid game, it makes it brilliant. It's like Peak. Peak is a silly game, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah, you'll hurt innocent people like me.
Not again.
Hold on, Hugh. I'll see what I can do.
Dan, Dana, if you could hurry up, please, that would be awesome sauce.
I won't let you paint the world black.
stasis one is kind of massive now, though, isn't it? Yay! Right, okay, 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 okay.
Now your fate is sealed. I've accepted the perfect access. You're going to know what? You can think what you want, but we will beat you. I am the bearer of his final word. Wait till I recharge.
Could you hurry up and recharge faster? I like that. Okay, I feel like this one is doing slightly better. I do need more weapons then. I'm a-trying. I'm a-trying. Is that the filament one again? Right, okay, 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 okay. Burgundy. There we go, there we go. Right, we're doing a lot better. We have a little bit of health left, and I feel like in a better position at the moment. I have proton lasers, I have shockwave guns. Yeah. Don't get excited. She's doing that thing. Right, okay, this is the bullshit from the last time. Just gotta keep moving. I said move, Hugh, not stay still. Okay. Okay. You got this. Jump, jump, dash. If any of you haven't played Split Fiction, quite possibly one of the greatest of games I've played in a long time. Play Split Fiction. I'm telling everybody to do it. Jump, jump, dash. Jump, jump, dash. And fuck. It was all going so well until I fucked it. Oh, fuck. Right, okay. Three for Southern. That is a brilliant game. Phenomenal game. Oh shit, I got too close. What is that? Charge piercer? Yeah, maybe. Get a wee bit of distance on it. I played it. I recognize that word. Ah, come on, stop moving. Stop doing the thing that stops me from murdering you. Because it's inappropriate. Oh, fuck! Fuck! No!
Are you okay?
Yet. Almost there. I know, it was so close. I don't think there's any more upgrades I can go for, though. Now, let's see. Listen up. We all listen to see.
Almost had it.
We did! We did almost have it. It was so close. Wait. Why am I waiting? Wait. 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 Wait there. There's gotta be something. Just a stretch and hydrate. Stretch and hydrate. Well, I have a little bit of juice. You're right. Stretch out. There we go. Go pee or something. No. That's how you end up dead, because if you pee, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. I don't need a deletion protocol. Do not need a deletion protocol. Don't know why I'm running around like that for. I felt like we were close. Felt like it was close. You know, it's like a Dark Souls boss. I have a new hack on it. It's like a Dark Souls boss. You just gotta keep at it. Oh, I'll look at my mods. I got increase hacking range, increase max HP, reduce damage taken when you're aiming your weapon, increase hacking node duration, activate the fast move successfully, starts a period of slow time where yeah, I think they're all cool. Increase attack power. Yeah. I think this is good. I think this is fine. This is fine. We got it. This is the one. And if it's not, then it'll be the one after. This is it. Ready? See? Ready knows. He's trying not to be really ridiculous, but...
Keeps chaining her attacks together.
Yeah, how dare she?
No kidding.
Think she's mad?
If we get caught up in that, we're finished. I'll keep my eyes peeled for any.
Did you do it? I didn't. Not yet. She's beat me a couple of times. She's difficult. She's a difficult early boss. If this is not the one, then I want a refund. Oh shit. I'm gonna have to do it now. The pressure's on. Queen V's throwing down the gauntlet. I didn't spend any money, but a refund or something.
Sorry,
Well, I've already taken damage, so... Ooh,
streaking!
30 stream streak, thank you, Mickens.
And into the gymnasium! Come on, everybody!
Targeting. I need to find a way to increase that cooldown. Targeting. Yeah, she's pissed. She's pissed. Oh shit. Oh, thought I had her. There we go, we got her. Let's see what ammos we got. How about this?
Not again.
Hold on, you! I'll see what I can do!
Stasis net. I tried to catch the fog the other day with a net and I missed. Oh fuck. We're halfway. We're halfway there. We're living on a prayer. Let's go. Bon Jovi, lead us. Lead us. Lead us, Bon Jovi. Almost there. Almost there. Nearly done. Yeah. Yes, Spider-Man. Who that was aimed at. Fuck! Fuck! Oh, eyeball is itchy and sweaty. Fuck. Right, we're in the same kind of position we were last time. I'm just going to pick up fucking ammo and weapons and whatever the fuck I can now. Oh, overdrive. Right, okay. Wait. Let's go for it. My problem is going to go into that cutscene while I'm doing all this damage. But I'm hoping it kind of carries through a little bit. Right, here's the bullshit bit. I don't know if staying around the outside is the better move, or it's just kind of the move I'm doing. Right, last healing gone. I'm the leader. I'm the one who decides when we. She's doing her 3-for-1 now. Fuck. No. I just need to hit her. Is this it? Is this it? Have we got her? Have we got her? God! See if it's a phase 2, I'm going to fucking throw this controller at the screen. Is this a phase 2? Is this a phase 2? Oh, fuck off. Oh, I think that's my bit. My hands are so sweaty. Sweaty hands. Fuck you, ads. GG, thank you. Those dashes came in clutch. They really did at the end. Fucking hell. And I don't even think it was skill. It was just absolute lucky charms. Tell them all. I ate all of the Cocoa Pops. Yes, no refund for me. No, not Queen Bee. No, no. Full price. Full price. Double price now.
Transport's at the top of the tower. Diana, we gotta go.
I love like she's wearing that. We still wearing that VR headset. What are we doing about Hugh, though? He's still infected. Double price, I'm complaining now. Well, you have to write a letter of complaint to the management, to my line manager. And then in 3 to 4 months, they'll get back to you with confirmation it's been received. Then you must write a letter of intent along with all of your evidence, photo ID, and $50. And then we may consider taking your complaint seriously.
Yeah. I couldn't save her, but at least we got to talk.
I'm sorry.
Sounds exhausting. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. There's a refund process, but no one could be bothered. Although I have been dealing with someone at work that every single one of their queries, they want the list as a formal complaint because they think it gets done quicker. Kai! Thank you very much for signing the ledger. Welcome on.
The lyric is he gets around.
Lyric is he gets around. How the fucking dare you, Kai? What is the story? How are you getting on?
Right? Or you want to do some bird watching?
I want to do both.
Warning, we're coming up to the very end of the game if you don't want spoilers. Don't like us, don't like us. Void swashed her. I'll spoil myself. Because tomorrow I forget. I'm the same. I got no memory. That's why I have to upload VODs for these games.
Now what?
Oh, what the fuck? Oh, is it that thing from earlier? Thank you for the shout out. Not a problem, Kai. Anybody that's not following Kai, please do so. I've been missing a lot of your streams because I've been in the office. But I normally try and catch you whenever I'm working from home.
We can't leave it like this. It can follow us to Earth.
In the memory of playing RPGs 7 years ago, but anything now, it's like no idea. Yeah. Well, fucking, this is mine.
Yeah. I was a lot like you. A thirst for life and all its mysteries. And boy, I had a few bumps along the way.
Okay, this is about badass. This is
about someone looking out for me.
And she's still on her back. No problem there. Also, how dare baldy man. I have a full head of hair. It's just very light. I like to keep it short because it keeps me aerodynamic. Oh, Transformer! Our name is Optimus. Oh, this looks so cool. Waiting. It's waiting. It's loading. It's Windows. I'll have to do a puzzle. Reloading. Oh my fucking god. The Windows operating system. This is crazy. I know, look how pretty this looks. What, the dead space? I ain't the dad space because we're playing as a dad. With our little robot daughter. Yes, it was. Waiting, waiting, waiting. Oh, it was close. Also, my meeting is over. Yay! The meeting is over. Was it a meeting? It could have been an email. Is that the problem? Because I have plenty of those. It's doing something. Something is happening. We've been absorbed under it. Yes! I know this is very on rails, this bit, but it's so cool. I've lost one of my guns! No! I only have one gun. I had two guns, then I took an arrow to the knee. Up to daisies. There we go. Now charge. Oh, that was close. That was close. I didn't think I was going to make that one. How tall is this fucking tower? Imagine if you still had to climb this in the game without this. Oh, the Void Sister. Oh, shit. Oh, I still have to do this. Right, okay. Deal 3,000 hacking damage? I think that was going to happen either way. I don't think I had too much choice in that. I don't think it was a skill issue. This boy's wrecking the place. Maybe we could tame him and ride him like a space dragon. Wait, that didn't sound right.
Let me try.
That is so fucking cool. 10001000111. Holy shit! We're getting upgrades. We're getting upgrades. Use some propulsion from the laser to fly back to Earth. Right? He's not coming back from that. He can't come back from that. Come on. Come on, he's on butts.
That should do it. Diana!
Oh, get her. Get her. Get her. Get her. Get her. No.
Yeah. Just put a bit too much into it there.
Hmm.
But I'm fine now.
We near endgame. I think this is it now. You must the fight took. There was a near Dark Souls level final boss. She took a few goes to get. And then we just fought a big monster in space. That is our shuttle. It's a little bit fucked.
Are you okay?
Don't worry. I made a promise, right?
I have no weapons, so I'm assuming this is just going to be walkie-talkie rather than Pew, 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 pew.
Back on Earth, you can walk for yourself.
Way sorry, man. I must lurk in there. Not a problem. Jesus, I do it all the time. Do you?
You sure?
I have feet.
I do it all the time. Here, look. I'm walking perfectly fine.
I'm best NPC.
Back on me in no time.
That's not true.
It's like having a toddler and them trying to get out of the pram. They only want back into the pram.
Can't rely on me forever, you know.
I think I'm dying. He hasn't shown his face in quite a while as well. I think he's proper infected.
I'll do whatever it takes to get you back to Earth. No matter what.
What do you mean back to Earth? She's never been to Earth.
There's a cargo ship.
Really?
Where does that car go? Eh? Cargo ship. Oh, they're fucking us too.
Can we go to Earth in that?
Yeah. Might just pull this off.
Yes! Ice cream.
Diana.
What, Hugh?
Thanks.
No problem.
She's so cute. So tiny. Like when you're walking beside Hook in real life.
Is this how we're going to Earth?
A cargo shell. It is what it is.
Whoa, I know. Shots fired. Shots fired. So Hugh can't get on here. But she can.
Tight fit. But that'll do.
What about you?
Explosions messed everything up. Full automation's not an option. Gotta push it to the end of the rail. Hang tight.
Not even a little hug goodbye. I don't think there's time. Work and play.
Hugh? Is everything all right?
Yeah. It's a heavy bugger.
I want to help.
Stay put. It's too risky.
Oh, fuck. Right, okay. Oh, we have jetpacks. Let's go.
Let me hack it.
No need. Just gotta give it a bit of the old elbow grease.
Straight shot the Earth.
Hugh?
How does he know to do this as well? I wouldn't know where to go. I'd just start pushing the back it.
Time to bring it in.
What's that? Like his life support? Fucking ad breaks starting in 50 seconds as well. Sorry, folks. Oh my god, no, I'm crying. No, you're crying.
Bad news. This is where we say goodbye.
Oh, he's infected.
Sorry, Squirt.
No, I
It's okay. Gonna be okay.
Father! Father!
What happened to me, priest? Apologies, anyone stuck in ads. I'd have no more snoozes. Chile Orc. Why Pinchile Orc? Why me? I didn't do it.
journey, kiddo.
I have cried him seen him amount of times and now this. I apologize. Let's take the RE games. Thank you. I love a good wholesome game like this. Oh, fucking music and everything. That's at the end? No. GG's, thank you very much. Oh my god, that was such a good game. I'm hoping there's some sort of other credits. Maybe as well, because I haven't unlocked everything, I might not get the full credits. I don't know. Does it give you an option to skip? Does? Will I skip? Or do we like the song? Is the song going to get copyrighted anyway? Unless I sing over the top of it. Meh, meh. I had to do that with Metal Gear Solid 5 because of all the licensed music on it. Do skip with you? Does another cutscene come up? Does something come up? Oh, yes! Here we go. I did that with Ferryman where we finished Halo 3, I think it was, and I was all just skipping the credits and we'll go to the cutscene, and then skip the cutscene as well. He's raging. I was all, you can look it up on YouTube. She landed in there on the beach and everything. That's what she wanted. Oh, and their wee feats. And he doesn't let you look. He does not. He still bears a grudge. Because we finished it in Legendary. And you got the extra cutscene for it. Break finishing. Yeah, about time. She made it. Ah, there's a crab. Things are going to go sideways real fast. See? Told you. He's sad. I wonder if there's a sequel. I know there isn't actually a sequel yet, but I wonder if they're going to make a sequel to it. Is Legendary a difficulty mode? Yeah, in Halo it's the hardest difficulty. And in Halo 3 there was an extra ending if you finished it in Legendary. Oh, you stop there in the moon. You got cute wee nose. You fucking love noses, eh? PRAGMATA.
Very good.
Lazy, what's happening? 10 out of 10, bleed out spot. Where it's what happens. If this game makes money, sure it'll have a sequel DLC. Nice one. Congratulations for completing the story. You can now carry your complete save forward, restart your story in enhanced state, and begin a new game mode. Yeah. Unknown signal. I wonder about that. Yes, I want to overwrite that save slot. Nice. Why is the screen so blurry? Everything's so blurry. Is it blurry? Or is it just the... Oh, because you cried. Right, okay. Okay, I got it. I got the thing that you were saying. Turbo, I understood. I understood the mission. Just the tears. I thought it was just my bad. I said, oh, I got new costumes. Jackhammer now unlocked. Ooh. New game plus mode. You can select carry over parts of your complete save data. It's been a while. It's been a while. Begin the story from the enhanced state, right? Okay. Lunatic difficulty unlocked. Oh, that sounds fun. No, it's new weapon functions. Unknown signal mode has been unlocked. This mode adds new content to your save data before completing the game. Overcome new challenges and earn special rewards. Outfits. Ooh. Very nice. No, I don't want to start that yet. Unknown signal. So, get unknown signal. So, it's a new game mode, new game plus. Fuck, there's loads. You get your money's worth of this game, don't you? Fucking hell. Oh, I enjoyed that. That was good. That was really good. Such a good game. Such a good game. So the next game we're going to be playing is Resident Evil. Oh no, we're not allowed to call it that. Not allowed to call it that. We're going to be playing Village. Village. We're going to be playing It Village because we're not allowed to call it Resident Evil. Those are the rules. So I'll be back tomorrow night to play that. And then I'm going to be off then for about a week because I'm away in Hollypops with the Killy Begs down beside the beach. Maybe I'll see Diana. Who knows? But we'll be back and starting Village tomorrow, and then there'll be a bit of a break, and then we'll be continuing on afterwards. But I'm going to see now who we can raid out. Thank you as well, folks, for coming on. Thank you, everybody who came on. And everybody, all the chatting, all the subs and resubs, and the gifted subs, and the bots. These are wild good. These are wild good. These are wild fucking sound, and I appreciate every one of these. Thanks, mate. Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for hanging through the whole thing. Unlike Hook, who's supposed to be my mod, May was here the whole time. Stuck in the cake. What's happening? Good night. Only got home. No way, man. But thank you very much for coming on, Cake. McKinn's, thank you very much. Turbo, Lazy, Ghost in the Fork, everybody. These are all fucking sound. Thank you so much, everybody. The game, I've already read that. I read it. I scrolled up when I put in my scroll up. Let's see about raiding out. So, Little Starlight is someone I know through Ian's community. She's recently got back into streaming after getting a PC upgrade, but she's playing through Kingdom Hearts now at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to raid out. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to see if he's beat the boss. So I'm going to start my raid up. I'm going to throw down my messages. Top one is for followers. Bottom one is for subs. We may be bald, but our heads reflect greatness. And I'm going to start this raid up. Boss has not been defeated. Not been defeated. So check in again tomorrow night. Everybody will have gone up a level anyway. And we'll see then if you can beat the boss tomorrow. And I will catch you folks tomorrow, and I'll see you then. Have a good night. I'll chat to you. Bye-bye.